He barely trained, he coasted through seasons, and still he became one of the most dominant players in NBA history. This is the story of Shaquille O'Neal, a walking contradiction who redefined what raw talent can achieve and what it can't. Because if this is what he did without trying, imagine what we could have seen if he actually did. If he trained like Kobe. If he obsessed like Jordan. If he was passionate like LeBron. Will we ever know what we missed or keep guessing of what could have been? Before the MVPs, before the nicknames, before the movies, endorsements, and viral moments, Shaq was just a kid whose body didn't make sense. By 13, he was taller than his coaches. By 15, he could dunk flat-footed. By 17, he had the size of a big man but moved like someone half his weight. Everyone called him a freak of nature, but the nature part was only half the story. Because back home, the expectations were anything but loose. Shaq's stepfather, Philip Harrison, was a military man, tough, principled, disciplined. He raised Shaq with structure, with order, with consequences. No sleeping in, no excuses, no wasted potential. And still, somehow, the kid who grew up under that roof became one of the least disciplined superstars the league had ever seen. Shaq didn't look lazy. He showed up, played hard, and dominated. But he didn't grind, didn't chase edges. And that raises a harder question. When everything comes easy, what pushes you to do more? At LSU, he dominated the SEC without a reliable post move, put up 27 and 15 without hitting free throws, blocked 5 shots a night without understanding angles or footwork. He didn't love lifting, he didn't study film, he just played, and because he was that good, no one really challenged him to change. Coaches praised his talent, teammates joked about his habits, and the media framed it all as charm. In 1992, the NBA was changing. The league was growing, the stars were getting bigger, and the Orlando Magic, a young team in a small market, needed a face. They didn't just need a player, they needed hope. They needed someone to believe in. And then came the NBA lottery. Orlando landed the #1 pick in the NBA draft, and with it, the keys to everything. Shaquille O'Neal wasn't just the top pick. He was the most hyped big man since Kareem. A college phenom with NBA-ready power and box office appeal.
1992 NBA draft, the Orlando Magic selects Shaquille O'Neal from Louisiana State University.
Orlando didn't just draft a player, they built a franchise around a single name. And the moment he walked on stage in that magic hat, the city changed. His rookie contract was the biggest the league had ever seen, $41 million for 4 years, more than most current players were making at the time, and it paid off fast. Shaq didn't need time to adjust. In his first season, he broke rims, made the All-Star team, put up 23 points and 14 rebounds a night like it was nothing, led Orlando to 20 more wins than the year before, and turned a struggling expansion team into must-see TV. From day one, he was a show. Power, charisma, highlight after highlight. Crowds showed up early just to watch him warm up. Shaq didn't just meet expectations, he blew straight through them. But buried underneath all the noise, one thing never changed. Shaq still wasn't pushing himself, not in the weight room, not in the film room, not even in practice. He was outscoring all-stars without structure, out-rebounding veterans without discipline, and no one really stopped to ask what that meant, because the league had never seen anything like him. Not Wilt, not Kareem, not a man that size, moving at that speed with that kind of presence. Shaq had turned raw talent into dominance without touching the tools that usually build greatness, and that was the mystery. The man who grew up in a disciplined household had no internal drive to discipline himself, because from the very beginning, being just good enough still made him better than almost everyone. So no one pushed him, and he didn't push himself. But dominance without effort always comes with a question. Not how far can he go, but how long can it last? Shaq didn't take long to become the guy. By his second season, Orlando was winning. By his third, They were title contenders. And in 1995, just 3 years into the league, they beat Jordan's Bulls in the playoffs and went to the NBA Finals. It wasn't supposed to happen that fast. But Shaq made time feel irrelevant. He wasn't just putting up numbers. He was breaking teams, breaking defenses, breaking expectations for what a young center could do in the modern NBA. And for a while, no one asked too many questions because dominance makes everyone comfortable. Teammates feel safe. Coaches look smart. Executives look like geniuses. And the fans, they show up, cheer, and forget the process. But even in the middle of the rise, the signs were already there. Shaq was skipping workouts. He was rehabbing injuries on his own timeline, filming movies in the off-season, dropping rap albums during training camp. This wasn't a secret. He talked about it, laughed about it, brushed off criticism because he could back it up on the court. And the crazy thing is, he was right, at least for a while.
In many ways, one of the most compelling personalities of this NBA season has been Orlando Magic rookie Shaquille O'Neal. Even though his team didn't qualify for the playoffs, barely missing, Shaq has still been everywhere, selling sneakers, soft drinks, basketballs. In less than a year, Shaq has emerged as an endorsement superstar, and Peter Bessie has more of his story.
Is basketball interfering with your movie life, with your rap, with your... I mean, it just seems to me like you're doing so many things. When do you have a chance to play basketball? When do you have a chance to improve?
Well, I know it sounds hard, doing a movie, doing rap, doing this, doing that, but you have to make time. Like, for example, I'm gonna be shooting my movie from 12 to whenever. So I have to get up at 8, shoot free throws, lift weights, and then everything else comes after. So I'm gonna make time because, you know, I want to be up there, and I want you to.
Because even at 70 or 80%, he was still unstoppable. Still drawing double teams, still averaging 28, still packing arenas, winning games, and delivering highlights every night. But not everyone saw it the same way. Some of his teammates quietly resented it. They were grinding, lifting, pushing themselves every day just to keep up. And the guy who led them didn't seem to care nearly as much. Kobe wasn't there yet. But the seeds of that future clash were already being planted. And then came the 1995 finals. And standing on the other side was a player who did train, who did work. Hakeem Olajuwon wasn't stronger or faster, but he was smarter, sharper, more prepared. And in 4 games, he gave Shaq a masterclass in what polished greatness looks like. That sweep wasn't just a loss, it was a message. Talent could take you far, but eventually the game would ask for more effort, more sacrifice, more than just gifts. And the question hanging over Shaq's future was simple. Would he ever be ready to give it? In 1996, Shaq left the Orlando Magic. The team was talented, but he was done. Tired of management, tired of the injuries, tired of carrying the load. So he went west, to Hollywood, to Legacy, to the Lakers. It was a $120 million move, a bet on fame, titles, and market power, and right behind him came a 17-year-old kid from Philly, Kobe Bryant. They weren't supposed to be equals. Shaq was a global icon. Kobe hadn't played a single NBA minute, but from the beginning, the energy was unmistakable. Kobe didn't want to follow. He wanted to win, now and always. He showed up early, stayed late, asked questions, watched tape. At first, it didn't matter. Shaq was still dominant. Kobe was still learning. The team wasn't good enough just yet to expose the cracks, but the difference in how they approached the game, it never went away. Shaq had always been the most gifted guy in the room. He didn't need to obsess. He played hard in games, coasted in practice, and still made the all-star team. Kobe was the opposite. He didn't coast, he didn't let up. He was involved in every drill, every rep, every film session. He didn't want to dominate. He wanted to master the game, and he couldn't understand why Shaq didn't. That's when the friction started. Not because one of them was wrong, but because they both believed they were right. Shaq believed in talent, in showing up when it mattered, in conserving energy for the playoffs. He'd earned that mindset with years of winning on his terms. But Kobe believed in hard work. and sweatequity.in, out preparing every opponent and every teammate. To him, not grinding was disrespectful. And by the early 2000s, that tension had turned personal. They barely spoke, they traded shots through the media, they argued in practice, and still, they won. 3 straight championships. Shaq was finals MVP each time. Kobe was the closer, the killer, the one who took over when games got tight. It worked, but it was fragile. The relationship didn't grow with the success. It crumbled underneath it, because every win just raised the question louder. If they're this good while fighting, how great could they be if they actually worked together? From 2000 to 2002, Shaq was the best player in the world. Period. No debate. No close second. 3 straight titles. 3 finals MVPs. Game after game, he made NBA players, professionals, look like they didn't belong on the same floor. He wasn't just scoring. He was breaking teams, stripping their confidence, making coaches give up on game plans by the second quarter. They'd double him. Didn't matter. Game plan for him, he'd still dominate, triple team him. He'd give Kobe the ball and let him kill you instead. And the worst part for his opponents was this. He still wasn't giving full effort. He came into camp out of shape, missed rehab windows, had toe surgery late on purpose because he said, "I got hurt on company time, so I'll heal on company time." This was his peak, and it was messy. Shaq was crushing the league without ever respecting it. The Lakers kept winning, but it got harder. He was missing more games, getting slower. His conditioning dipped, but his ego didn't. Kobe was watching all of it and began getting louder about it. He was training like a machine, waking up at 4 a.m., getting better every week, and wondering why the guy next to him wasn't doing the same. That's when the tension boiled over. Kobe started calling Shaq out publicly. Shaq fired back. It got personal. No, ugly. And in the middle of it all, they kept winning. But not like before. The joy was gone. The trust was gone. They were still winning games, still raising banners, but behind the scenes, the team was falling apart because by 2003, it was clear. Shaq wasn't the same. He was still putting up huge numbers, but the gap in skill level between him and everyone else was starting to shrink. His game hadn't evolved, his body was wearing down, and the league, it was catching up. You can't coast forever, even when you're Shaq. And that's what made this run so strange. It was the peak of his power, but also the start of something breaking. Not just his body, not just the team, but the myth. Because the longer Shaq stayed on top, the more people started to ask, how long can a player this dominant let it keep coasting before it all catches up? By 2004, the run was over. The Lakers lost in the finals, the chemistry was gone. The cracks that started small had split the whole thing open. Kobe wanted control, Shaq wanted respect, and neither of them wanted to bend. So the team made its choice. On July 14, 2004, the Los Angeles Lakers traded superstar Shaquille O'Neal to the Miami Heat for Lamar Odom, Karen Butler, Brian Grant, and a future first-round pick. And just like that, the dynasty ended, not with age or defeat, but ego. And for the first time in his career, Shaq wasn't the center of it all. He wasn't the future. He was the big name on a new team, trying to prove he still mattered. In 2005, Miami made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, but ultimately lost. Shaq wasn't the reason they fell short, but he also wasn't enough to carry them through. And maybe that was the wake-up call. A moment to look back at what he had and what he let slip. But heading into next season, something was different. For the first time in years, Shaq showed up in shape. He listened. He trained harder. He worked with a young star instead of clashing with one. He wasn't trying to prove he was the best player anymore. He was trying to prove he could still win. And it worked. In 2006, the Heat made it to the NBA Finals. Dallas versus Miami. The Heat fell behind 0-2. At the time, only 2 teams in NBA history had ever come back from that. And with a young core and a 34-year-old Shaq, it didn't look likely. But Miami fought back. Wade took over. The team locked in. And Shaq, he wasn't the old Shaq, but he became something else, a leader, a steady presence, the guy who kept the locker room focused, who made the right play, who finally led by example. And 6 games later, they won it all. Shaq had his 4th ring, not by overpowering, but by changing. Not as the leading scorer, not as the finals MVP, but as a key part of a team that finally felt balanced. And that's where the story gets harder to ignore, because the one time Shaq fully committed, fully took care of his body, fully bought into the system, played the long game, it earned him a championship. So it makes you wonder, if that version of Shaq had shown up earlier, the focused one, the prepared one, the one who actually locked, how many more could he and Kobe have won together? We'll never know. But that one ring in Miami didn't just add to his story. It made you ask something bigger. What really matters more, talent or work? Shaq's story doesn't fit the usual pattern. He didn't grind his way to the top. He didn't study the game like a student. He didn't chase greatness the way most legends do. He just showed up. And for a long time, that was enough. So what does that tell us? Was Shaq a once-in-a-lifetime talent who proved that hard work is overrated? Or was he a cautionary tale, someone who left greatness on the table because he didn't push further? It's hard to say, because he did win. He did dominate. He did change the game. But when you look at the full picture, it's hard not to wonder, how much more could he have done? What else could he have become? When you compare him to players like Kobe or Jordan, guys who obsessed over every detail, every edge, the contrast is sharp. Shaq didn't need to live in the gym. He didn't need to be locked in year-round. And maybe that was part of the problem. He was so gifted. He never had to find another gear. Most legends are shaped by pain, by loss, by a need to prove something. Shaq, he was shaped by dominance, by joy, by the fact that for most of his career, no one could stop him. And that's what makes this question so tough. Because the very thing that made Shaq so special, that effortless power, might have been the thing that held him back. Would more discipline have made him greater? Or would it have made him less Shaq? That's the debate. You can argue both sides. You can stack the rings, count the stats, point to the banners. You can say, he did enough. Or you can say, he could have done even more. There's no clear answer, only the question. What matters more, how far you went, or how far you could have gone.